Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I'm your host, Tenya Eichenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Here, we dive deep into energy healing, self-care, and the power of mindset to help you break free from old patterns and design a life that feels aligned, vibrant, and authentically you. Each week, we explore the tools, techniques, and real-life experience that guide us toward lasting healing and growth. Because true metamorphosis isn't just about change. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. Today, we are talking with Kris. Kris, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
So we're starting something new. And if the listeners have not heard of this, make sure that you look it up, and hopefully I'm saying it correctly. Hygge. Hygge. It is a Danish word for coziness, contentment, just good feelings. And I can't remember where I originally saw this, but ever since I've seen it, it's come into my awareness a couple of times. So I'm like, I'm all in. I'm all in. So I got this great game called the Hygge game, and we're going to ask our guests an opening icebreaker question. So I pulled a card beforehand, and the one that stuck out to me, and hopefully you have an answer. If not, you can make one up if you'd like. That's okay. The question is there any talent that seems to be passed down in your family?
Oh, that is an interesting question. And it's kind of funny because yes, the answer is yes. But it doesn't really follow a linear path. I actually was a professional opera singer for 25 years. I sang all over the world and had the joy of having that experience. And so I chose that at a very young age. I think I was 10.
Wow.
When I decided that's what I wanted to do. Someone gave me I'm going to date myself, warning everyone. Someone gave me a cassette tape.
At least it wasn't an 8-track.
Right. Now we had those too, sister. We had
Yes.
those too. Gave me a cassette tape of Kiri Takanawa singing, opera's greatest soprano hits. And I just fell in love. And I thought, oh man, this is what I want to do. This is the world I want to be in. And that is exactly what I did. From that moment on, I decided that I wanted to take voice lessons and I wanted to go into that world. And that's what I did. But my mother, while never singing professionally or going into that realm at all, always loved to sing and always loved music. And she volunteered as a cantor for the church that we grew up in. So, every Sunday she would sing, or whenever the service was, she would sing. And she had such a beautiful, just natural voice, never trained. But it was something that was very, very inherent in her. And my grandfather, her father, um, interesting enough, started his own big band orchestra, but again,
Wow.
not his career.
Right.
He played piano and he also played vibraphone and started a big band orchestra and was also the original, and you're not going to find any evidence of this, interesting story. He was the original creator of Muzak.
Wow.
Before Muzak was Muzak.
Right. Right. For those who
He
don't know what Muzak is, it's the music that's in retail stores.
Right. So it's playing greatest
Yeah.
hits, but it's only
Yeah.
the instrumental versions,
Right.
right? And so before that ever became a thing, he came up with that and took it to some places as an idea, and they laughed at him and
Aw.
told him that, no one would ever be interested in that was silly. So he just that wasn't his job, he
Right.
wasn't that, being a musician was not his full-time job. It was just something he did because he loved. So he kind of just let the idea go. And of course, lo and behold,
Somebody else
some
came up
years
with it.
after that,
Yeah.
that came out and became very, very,
Good.
centralized in our
Yeah.
shopping experience.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, there is a kind of a lineage of that, but no one became a professional, except for me. So I guess it was being primed down the
Right?
line.
Yeah, yeah, it went from um the progression of let me put out other people's stuff for
Yeah,
others to hear to your mom using her own voice to sing other people's stuff
yeah,
just in
exactly.
a small intimate setting to
Yeah.
you going on stage to just let people enjoy the fruits of your voice.
Yeah, I always felt like I saw it like being a conduit,
Yeah.
it was my voice, but it was like we are communicating, whatever the emotion is, whatever the story is for everyone to have their own experience with it. So, to
And
me it was like a pass-through experience.
yeah, and I'm sure that the people who were listening to you had now my first interaction with opera and probably a lot of other people's was from Pretty Woman. When
Uh-huh.
she goes to the opera and she has such an emotional I'm getting goosebumps. She has such an
Mhm.
emotional reaction to this opera that she goes to that's in Italian that she doesn't even know the words to, but just the emotion that comes through the voice and the music is just that was my first. Of course, and then there was probably who was the famous male opera singer.
Luciano Pavarotti.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
There isn't growing up, there wasn't a whole lot of introduction to that unless you had family that introduced it to you. It was definitely was not something that was on TV unless it was like in the cartoons.
Right.
Like
And
Bugs Bunny.
cartoons is one of the places that a lot of
Right.
people were introduced as well. Bugs Bunny and Dee
Yep.
Valcuda, being one of the biggest
Yep.
biggest introductions of that, or hearing, the Rossini and those cartoons. And it wasn't in my family either. Like I said, somebody gave me
Right.
a cassette. I mean, my parents listened to, country music, and I think the closest classical music we had in the house was, and I will 8-track it this time, classical gas, the disco version of classical music. So, I mean, I did not have examples in the
Yeah.
house, but like I said, when I heard that, I did always love music as a child. I loved singing and I loved music. And when I was introduced to that, like I said, just
Yeah.
I had an experience that I then passed on to other kids later. And like you said, there's not a lot of, at that time, there wasn't a lot of exposure to it.
Right.
But starting later, opera companies started to have educational, presentations, and they would send singers into schools, and they would perform for the kids to give the kids an opportunity. And I always, when I did some residence, artist in residence uh, jobs like that, I always loved giving kids the opportunity. And what I always told them was, I'm not here to tell you to like opera. I'm not here to tell you,
Yeah.
that you should go out and listen to it. What I'm here to do is to give you the opportunity to have a chance to experience it for yourself, and then you can decide.
Yeah.
And just giving them that opportunity, and watching them, like think, well, oh, you're not telling me what to do. I get to decide. They loved that. And I mean, I think as adults, honestly, I think we like that too.
Yeah.
We like
Absolutely.
being given the opportunity to experience, and then to decide. So that's just it was a beautiful experience. It was very powerful being able to share that with other people. It's nice on the stage, that's a really beautiful artistic experience, and to communicate with an audience that way. But going in and watching kids
Well,
and the
you're
different
planting a
ways they
seed.
respond, it's just
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, and you're planting a seed
Yeah.
for something to grow within them, whether it's
Yeah.
just a blip in their life and they got to that's a memory that they'll always have that, oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this one lady came in and told us talked to us about opera, or
Yeah.
or it's something that every once in a while they'll turn on the opera station and just listen to a couple songs and just it's just something that they might gravitate towards.
Yeah, and to me it's a bigger picture thing at this point, So not even about like, do you want to listen to a certain type of music, or get engaged with it, but like what you're seeing is a surprise.
Yeah.
Like you didn't expect that this person in this body was going to make that
Right.
sound and have this experience 3 feet from your face. And that element of unexpected surprise and new perspective and learning about something that they didn't learn about, to me that's the big kind
Yeah.
of overall lesson that I love that they were able to take away from something like that. And I hope they had many experiences like that where what you see, it only gives you part of the picture sometimes, that
Hmm.
when we assume, we miss part
Right.
of what is there, right? And to me, that was the beauty of all of that. It came in the package of opera,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was really so much more than that to me, about giving them the opportunity to experience something they otherwise wouldn't probably never would have experienced.
Absolutely. And I love that. I love that you got to experience that as well
Yeah.
on the teaching side.
Yeah. Well, and that's really how I kind of ended up transitioning into teaching and into
Yeah.
mentorship. I was singing professionally and I was going to go on that track and I intended to stay on that track. Um, but I went through a really sad divorce and I just thought, I just kind of really need to regroup for myself. And I decided to go back to school, which I said I would never do, and get my doctorate.
Wow.
And while I was there, I really fell in love with the process of transformation
Hmm.
that happens when you serve as a guide for another. You give them information, and then they have the opportunity to take that information and do something with it. And just witnessing that process for me, I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is, I mean, clapping's cool, but this is this is way better. And I really fell in love with becoming a guide and becoming a mentor. And so I started kind of performing less and getting more into teaching, and ended up doing that, for about 9 or 10 years at a school of music. And I then transitioned into doing this full time, doing coaching and consulting full time, for the exact same reason. I started seeing in
Right.
my studio, I had this, what I called my box of mistakes. Come on in, kids. Let's
I
make
love that.
let's make a mess. And of course, that was kind of terrifying
Yeah.
because in that world, there's so much of a right wrong paradigm. It's about perfection. It's
Right.
about being right. P.S. Most of the time, you're wrong. And so they were used to being told what to do, and that, most of the time it was going to be wrong. And here was a person saying, hey, come on, let's be wrong. Let's
Right.
let's
Right.
let's see what that's like. And it was very kind of, again, surprising for kids. But what they realized was that when they gave themselves permission to make mistakes, when they gave themselves permission to be in process without trying to be perfect, they
Hmm.
got better exponentially faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because
so
they go through the process of what did I do that didn't cause the outcome that I wanted, and
exactly.
how can I get the outcome that I wanted, or is this the outcome that it should be?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. It
Yeah.
went from try not to be wrong to what happens when I do this?
Right.
What happens when I do this? So we replaced expectation and fear and hesitation and perfectionism with curiosity and exploration and innovation and navigation and activation from that part of their brain. And again, I fell in love with the process. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
I want to know how this works. So I did my, I did my dissertation on performance anxiety and how the
Hmm.
brain works. I really fell in love with finding out what is the psychology behind what stops us in this process. And while that was geared toward, singers and performing artists, it applies to everything.
Well,
And
yeah,
so I
because
started I
because
started getting
life
these
is a
questions,
performance, isn't it?
Exactly. I started getting these kinds of questions. Well, what do I do about this? Kids would come in I'm not here for my singing lesson, but I'm having this problem with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
So I started noticing there was all this kind of like what they were learning from me was not just about the voice. It was a holistic approach to them as a person, and they could use what I was teaching them from a mindset perspective in all areas of their life. So it wasn't just voice lessons. It was
Mhm.
really transformative work happening over the time that we spent together.
Yeah.
And again, I fell in love with that process. And I thought, you know what? I feel like I want to create a bigger ripple effect. And within the confines of a university system, it's like you get this many students and you're this many hours, and that's all you can do. So I decided to, take a leap of faith in that. And I had a singer say to me, "I need someone who can do this, 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 and this. Are you that person?" And I thought, "Oh, I've always been that person for someone else, another organization. I've always
Right.
taught these things for someone else, but sure, I guess I could do that." And it kind of created a snowball effect. And the next thing I knew, my now husband and I took his production truck. We were living in LA at the time, and he was a director of photography for film and television. We took his production truck and took everything out of it, gutted it, and turned it into an RV. And I quit my jobs and we left.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow, that is amazing.
yeah, so it was quite a story. And I we moved up to Northern California, which is where I'm now. We don't live in the RV. That was kind of our way of getting here. We
You
ended up
you
selling
mean
it.
you're not in like this, this little
Right,
box
yeah, he's
you're
right
in right
there. He's
now.
sitting right there. No.
The kitchen is right there, the bathroom's over there.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we ended up buying a house up here, and then I actually built this outside of my house. We built a little studio for me, so that I could have a workspace outside the house. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey, getting from, that place of thinking that I wanted to do one thing and thinking, well, that's my heart dream. Um, And there's a big, in this particular world, especially in the opera world and music world, acting world, any of these performing arts, there's this kind of big stigma about making it. Are you good enough to make it? Right. And this kind of thing. And so there's always this little bit of ego struggle of, oh, well, if you quit, people are going to think you couldn't make it.
Mhm.
And what I realized for myself was that, what? My heart dream changed.
Right.
That was my
Right.
heart dream. My heart dream changed. And, if whatever people think about that, they just need to be able to have their own experience. And it's just
Mhm.
not my burden to carry. So off I went.
Right. It's not that's one thing that I have learned over the years is that other people's opinions are not mine to carry.
Yeah, not ours to carry.
But we're raised to carry other people's opinions.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
that's what
does
a lot
take
of this work comes from. This self-sabotage work comes from those beliefs that we create
Yep.
within us as a child, the conditioning either from society or our parents or teachers or family or community, or just that we create for ourselves based on the
Yeah.
experiences that we have.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
stuff that we inherit, that we absorb. I think the what we absorb, especially within the last probably 20 years with the invention of the internet and social media, the things that we're absorbing on a daily basis is astronomical, and a lot of people just don't realize how that affects our subconscious and then goes to our conscious mind.
Indeed, indeed.
And you were talking about the self-sabotage beliefs, and you've got this new program that we briefly talked about before we started recording. It was like, wait a minute, let's hold on to that, because that sounds really good, because I was like, what is up with the CSI stuff going on behind you? You're an opera singer turned coach,
Yeah.
and you've got red string and mug shots, and like, what's going on?
Yeah, this is my crime board. I have a crime board behind me now, self-sabotage crime board. Because as I started getting into, I've done a bunch of work with a bunch of archetype work, which I find to be very powerful. I got certified in doing branding archetypes and in money archetypes and in the Gene Keys work. And I love the universal archetypes, the archetypes of Carolyn Miss's work. So I was very interested in how these systems kind of interlaced with one another. So I kind of developed a body of work based on archetypes. And one of those universal archetypes is the saboteur. And a few years back, I came into contact with the organization Positive Intelligence. And that work is all based in saboteur work and self sabotage. And I thought, all right, that'd be cool. Just add some more tools to me all like savvy saboteur toolbox. But what I did not expect was how transformative that work was going to be in my personal life, and in the work that I started to do with my clients with it. It was so life-changing and transformative that I really started to focus my energy and my work toward self-sabotage primarily. And I did that for a while, and then I just kind of had this thought like, well, in my mind, these kind of show up as characters. And so there's these 10 ways. They've done all this research to come up with the fact that there's only 10 ways that we have negative response factors, and they show up as these 10 archetypal saboteurs: the judge, the avoider, the hyperachiever, the hyper rational, the victim, these kinds of things. And so in my mind, when I would see these, and perhaps it's because of my performer background, I saw them as characters. And so
Mm,
I started seeing these as different, different characters, and I started giving them names. And so they all have acronyms as names. And the biggest one, I wonder if I have a picture over here, so I don't have to take it off of my crime board. Oh yeah, here she is. Oh my goodness. My first and foremost, my dear girl Marty is my judge. So Marty's name stands for makes awful remarks to you.
I love that.
And in my mind, this is what she looks like. She kind of looks like an ice queen, and
Yeah.
everything's black or white. There's no middle ground for Marty. And everyone's judge is kind of a little different, but for me, Marty's like super cool, and she's kind of like a cool mean girl. And so when she talks, it sounds really legit.
Yeah.
She says things, like, that wasn't very good, was it? Oh, you did it like that? These kinds of
Right.
things that it's very easy to be like, oh, did I do it wrong? And really take that voice seriously.
Yeah.
So, learning the voices for myself of these saboteurs became a really powerful way for me to weaken them in myself. One of my biggest accomplices is a character I call Simon.
Good
Success is,
pointing, by the way.
yeah, I'm pointing to Simon back here.
Yeah.
Simon, success is my only need. And he shows up as a masculine dominant energy for me. And he reminds me of a coach I had, Slavic coach. And so he kind of looks like a gym coach, and he has that accent. Like, what are you doing? Why are you sleeping? We're not going to get any work done. No one makes money when they sleep. Get up. This kind of push, push, push kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so I found it for a long time hard to separate myself from work, because this voice was always saying, watching Netflix does not get you paid. And I'd be
Right.
like, oh, so like I'm sitting there like watching like on my computer at the same time. And I realized, okay, wait a minute. This is a lie. I can be a person while also running a successful business, Simon. I do not have to be
Right.
Velcroed to my computer
Right.
24/7. So after I started developing these characters, I just kind of had this epiphany very, very recently, actually. All these weird things started happening. My husband and I were watching Sherlock, as a show, and like Amazon Prime was asking me which true crime podcast I wanted to watch. I'm like, what? Why are you asking me this? And I just these weird little messages from everywhere, and I just had this epiphany that I wanted to I wanted to create a podcast that's really kind of different than anything I've seen. I wanted to create something where entrepreneurs and creatives and service providers could come and talk about something that's holding them back, something that's creating that negative something for them in their space. Because
Mhm.
if we're stuck in negativity, with the exception of grief, I do not consider that a negative emotion.
No.
We put that to the side. We're not
Right.
talking about that. But with the exception of that, negative emotions are all caused by self-sabotage. It's important to feel them, because that's part of being a human.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
a trigger to say, hey, something's not right. Like when you put your hand on the hot stove,
Yep.
ow, we need that pain to let us know.
Right.
We need these emotions to let us know, but we don't need to stay in them.
Right. Which is something that I think we're from the same generation that we were told to no, 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 no. Shh.
Right,
We
right,
don't get mad.
Right. No, just be nice.
Don't cry.
Yeah, right. And that leads to the pleaser, right? So
Right.
like you don't even get to have any other emotions besides everything's fine.
Right.
Pleaser and avoider telling
Right.
you, right? Oh, no problems.
Yep.
Right. So we have that on one hand, and then we have the other hand where, we get mad and we just stay in it. We get angry and frustrated. We call our friends and tell them what happened so they can support that
Yep.
negative emotion and get stuck in that.
Yeah.
So as I saw that and I thought, okay, I want to help somebody work through one of these things, but I want to do it in the style of like a true crime podcast to where the saboteurs are the suspects, right? And it's going to be called Saboteurs Slinking in the Shadows.
I
And we're
love
going to
that.
have this we're going to have this true crime parody kind of fun feeling, right? And then find out who the suspect is and who is causing this crime for this entrepreneur.
Hmm.
But the twist on all of this is that we don't, unlike, the way our system works in the world today, we don't punish our saboteurs. We don't push them down. We don't hate on them. We don't quote unquote beat them up. We don't try to quote unquote get rid of them because they're part of us.
Right.
And they came from a place in our childhood that was trying to protect us.
Hmm.
They come from a desire to keep us alive. They're
Yep.
not doing a great job because they've been overused and abused for decades for many of us. So what they've done is pushed us into negativity to help us
Right.
survive, as opposed to using the original skill sets that they came from over in that place of what we call in this work, sagey places of our brain, right, where we're into creativity and we can stay in that place of ease and flow. And for me, fun too. Feel like life's too short to, just
Yeah.
to not enjoy and have fun as we're, doing this whole like human experience thing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's where this came from, and it's not it's in the works right now. But I'm just having so much fun seeing them now as these suspects, quote unquote, for us to root out
Right.
and figure out who it is, and then what do they need. I'm always like, look, give them a cookie and an iPad and tell them to go have a seat, watch a
Yeah.
movie, because you're busy doing things to, enhance and empower your own life. You don't need someone yelling at you or making you feel bad or guilty or
Right.
sad or blame, shame, guilt. You don't
Yep.
need any of that. You can
No,
choose
no.
that. It is a choice. Once
Right.
you see it and once you see what it is, you realize that's a choice. And I do not have to choose that. There's another way.
Yeah. That's what I tell my clients all the time when we're getting into deliberate self-care. And they're like,
Mm,
yeah, I start meditating and then like all these thoughts come in. I'm like, you need to tell your ego to step to the side.
yeah,
That it's right now is not the time for them to come in and disrupt your day.
right.
You know,
And I think about this very much like a child, because as an adult, especially as a high achieving adult, people want to say, shut up, get out of here. And I think, well, would you say that to a
right.
5-year-old? When a 5-year-old
Right.
comes up and goes, "Hey, I saw this really cool thing," and would you be like, "Shut up, get out"? No. You'd be like,
Oh,
"Honey,
you,
honey,
right.
come here. This is not the time.
Yeah.
Okay, mom is doing something right now. All
Yep.
right, and I need you to come over here and sit over here and let me finish, okay?" So we can redirect in a way that comes from love and comes
Hmm.
from kindness.
Yep.
And yet, how often do we do that for ourselves?
Oh, not often at all.
Right. We may even do it for other adults, but I'm not including that. I'm sure that's, part of the crux of the work that you do is helping people see that like,
Yeah.
hey, you're part of the whole, not an exclusion.
Right.
You're
Right.
just treating you that way is just as important as treating everybody
Right.
else.
Well, we're having to reparent ourselves the
Yes.
way that we wanted or should have been parented. And it's no fault to our parents because our parents had never been parents before. I tell, my friends when we talk about our kids, I'm like, it- I've never been the mother of 26-year-old twins. Like this is regardless of whether I've been a parent for the last 25 years or not, when they, until they turn 26, I've never been the parent of 26-year-old twins. It's
That's
all
right.
new territory. And being adults, being, almost 49 years old is a whole new territory. I've never been 49 before. And when they start to look at it going, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I've never had to experience this before."
Yeah. And there's the other side of it too. Like, there may be people like me as well. Like I grew up in like a beaver cleaver type. I always describe it like that. Like I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were very loving and attentive to me. And yet I still developed this very high level of perfectionism thinking. My parents never talked to me about grades. They never had
Mhm.
to, that was me. I was the one who'd be like, oh, 98, like
Well, you have
where did,
school influence as well. You have influence from
sure,
teachers,
right. Yeah, well, and that's
that
what it
kind of stuff
was. It was
too.
an acceptance
Yeah,
approval diet, it was an acceptance approval
right,
issue to where what I noticed, no one said this to
right,
me. No one said, well, you need to, no one did that. But what I saw was when I make good grades, when I make straight lines, when I color like this, when I stand up and sing, I get love and affection
yeah,
more than
right,
what I get on a normal daily basis. So in my little child mind, I thought, oh,
yeah,
well, if some of this is good, a lot of it must be better to ensure my survival. And so I developed my own, perfectionism issue.
yeah,
And, and this is what happens with self-sabotage. There's nothing wrong with excellence. There's nothing wrong with doing things at a very high level, doing things in a detail-oriented way, in a very highly talented way. It's when you start to feel frustration or embarrassment or shame when it's not perfect.
right,
Now we know we're in the realm of self-sabotage, right? Now
right.
we know we've gone in that direction, and we need to learn how to shift away from that. We can still be all those wonderful things, those skills that we developed as a child that are good for us, that
Hmm.
level of detail or that level of wanting to dedicate your time and energy toward a talent. That's great.
Yeah,
So we need to get back to the place where we're not overusing and abusing those thoughts that say, if it's not like this, then it's bad. If it's not like this, then you're bad.
right,
Right.
right. Because the only person who can dictate what perfect is us. We're the only ones who
Indeed.
dictate what perfect is.
Indeed.
And when we really start to pick apart ourselves, that's when that self-sabotage
Yeah.
starts to creep in.
I love using nature as, a key to perfection. Like go look at a tree, go look at a flower, go look
Mhm.
at it, and if you look very close, you will see the different little nuances of its
Yep,
design.
yep.
And yet it is perfect in what it is.
It's
Uh,
perfect all the time,
it
just
is
like we are.
perfect all the time,
Yeah,
just as we
yeah.
are.
It's
Well
yeah.
said.
It's like I always, it's always, it's like who decided what perfect was?
Yeah.
We
I
decide what perfect
yeah,
is.
I think I'm with you. I let nature,
Yeah,
I let universal order
yep,
decide what perfect is,
yeah,
and since I am a part of that, I'm not excluded from nature. I'm not excluded from universal order. I'm just a bunch of
yeah,
atoms stuck together and it happens to look like this, you know. Who am I to exclude myself from the perfection of that order?
yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Well, it certainly helps us to have a better day. I
It
mean,
does absolutely.
I mean, I wake up, every day I wake up, I say, today is amazing.
Yeah,
Not it's going to be amazing because that's in the
today
future.
is amazing. Yep,
If I open my eyes, it's already amazing. Today is amazing because I have another opportunity to try this thing called life.
yep,
I've been through
yeah,
so many difficult and tragic experiences and transformed this existence of mine so many times that I've gotten to the point where I realize to just have the opportunity to do that for another day is the definition of joy for me.
and I think that's one of the purposes of why we are in this human experience is to find joy and happiness in the life that we're
Yes.
already living.
Yes. Like, what are we waiting for?
Right, right.
Right? Are
Like
you
what?
waiting for that perfect job or that perfect number in your bank account or that perfect
Yeah,
place to live or what are you waiting for? I mean, to me, that's backward. That's why I named my business Gilded Within. It's not called Gilded something else out there so that then you can feel good,
right.
right? It's about if you consciously decide to create that within you, then you can allow everything outside of you to then reflect that. But if
Yep.
you're trying to get the picture out there and this is not
Yeah.
this is not where you're finding the value, the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment, then what are you trying to get to resonate with you?
I think we were cut from the same cloth, because
Right?
that's how I see mine design your existence, is
Yes.
redesign what is going on inside of you so that
Yes.
outside is that reflection. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that image of designing yourself inside, like, that kind of picture of like, how do I want to do this?
Yeah.
And that is a conscious choice. How do I want to do this? I think so many people, sadly, have been subject to the lie that something out there defines who you are, something out there tells you how you get to be. And so you just allow yourself to react to that.
Hmm.
Your feelings inside, the way that you wake up, the way that you exist, the stress that you take on, all of that, everything outside of you gets to dictate you. That's a lie.
Yeah.
You get to say it's your conscious reality. You're the one that's creating it. So you
Yep.
decide and then watch. You just watch what happens out
Yeah.
there when you
Yeah.
decide that's how you're going to show up. It's to me that is the transformative work that we are doing.
Yeah.
That is what is allowing people to have incredible lives, and that designing, as you said, of an experience like you want to have.
Mhm.
It doesn't come from out there. All that stuff's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. There's
No.
nothing wrong with having the cars and the house and
Nope.
the money and
Absolutely not.
that's wonderful, wonderful things. But you're not gonna get your happiness and fulfillment from that. And we know
No.
that because we know plenty of people who have those things who are
Yep.
not happy and they don't
Yep.
feel fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are the same. Don't, people are not going to fulfill that need in you either.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
you can't. Yeah, you can't. There's a wonderful book. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it talks about building your home within yourself. It says you can't build your house in someone else,
right. Right.
right? You cannot set that up in someone else and hope that they are going to be responsible
Right.
for your house. That's actually naughty. That's naughty, naughty. Don't
Yeah.
don't give somebody else. Don't say,
Yep.
"Hey, you're the one who should make me happy. You're the one who should make me feel safe. You're
Right.
the one who should, make me feel like I can believe in myself." Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
Nope.
No, that's our responsibility.
It is, even and someone might say, "Oh no, but you're wrong." But even as kids, that's our responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, and if we are fortunate enough to come into that
Yeah.
information, to me, the sooner the better.
Hmm.
And for every parent, relative, sibling, teacher, community member who gives that gift
Yeah.
to
Tell
someone,
children. Tell children to
I'm so
really.
grateful for those people in the world who are providing those
Yeah.
little pieces of information, those little moments that say, you can do anything.
Yeah. So that leads into some of our final questions, is the two or three nuggets that what would you share with not just the listeners, but what would you share with a 5-year-old that
Uh,
would plant those seeds?
the first thing I would say is that words are very important, and you can't be responsible for other people's words, but you can be responsible for your own.
Yeah, I love that.
And when you think about it, even if they're in your head, they have an effect. So we have to be very careful about using them from a place of humor, like, oh, I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
Watch it. Watch it, right? Because
Yep.
even that is creating secret shame within us.
Hmm.
Um, and we do this a lot as adults too, right? Well, it's not perfect yet. Well, it's not as good as so and so's. Well, I still have a
Right.
long way to go. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't need to qualify all the time where we fit in some form of hierarchy. Hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
Okay, come out, word. Come
You got
out.
it.
Come out. We don't have to qualify like that. And
Yeah.
so watching our words and eradicating words that don't support us and lift us up and take us toward the alignment that we wish to see in ourselves is important. I think That's something we all need to be, like, especially the ones, because someone said, oh, I would never say that out loud. I would never. Okay. But
Yeah.
guess what? Your cells hear you. They're like, a trillion little worker bees in your body. And when you say that, they all go, okay, did everybody get the message? Okay, we're an idiot. Did everyone get that? They
Yeah.
hear that and
Yeah.
they embody what you pull into your thought energy. So what we put into that, either in spoken or in thought, is to me one of the most important things we can recognize. It's a big creator of self-sabotage, and just
It
letting them
is.
get away with it.
Yep.
That's the crime, right? Don't let them get away with saying those kinds of things, even in your own mind, and we put those judgments towards ourselves, towards others, and towards circumstances. So we got to be aware of it in all three cases.
Absolutely.
I think I would also say, I don't, this is challenging for a child, perhaps, um, because you're trying to teach a child how to operate in the world. But at the same time, I still stand by it. I don't really believe in, this is hard for people to grasp sometimes. I understand that. I don't really believe in good and bad anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
I believe things happen, and
Yep.
I believe we have a way of responding to those things, and we can be repressive or reactive or responsive. I choose responsive. And so I would say, exchange bad and good for curiosity.
Mm,
Become deeply fascinated
yeah.
with what you see. Become deeply fascinated with another person's behavior. Become deeply fascinated with something that's different than you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think if we weren't so busy being afraid of what isn't like us or what isn't comfortable for us, um, then we wouldn't miss all of these fascinating nuances of what it means to exist on this planet at this time. I mean, to me, it's more about, I used to think that it was about, oh, we're here to help evolve the human race, and come into a way of thinking that helps us evolve to a higher place. Now, honestly, I kind of think it's more that, the whole purpose is for us to come and have this human experience. Like, come
Hmm.
and have this experience. And it comes with all these emotions and all of these wild things and all of
Yep.
these beautiful things. And the minute we let go of bad and good, you stop like automating in your brain to say, oh, they said that, they're bad. Oh, they said this,
Right.
they're good. Oh, they look like that, they're bad. And we just automatically start generating assumptions and categorizing things. And we're not even experiencing anymore. We're not really even allowing ourselves to go, wow, that's different.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Ooh, that's different than I think. Oh, wow, that person looks like they're having an experience right now. And when you live like that, you don't get sucked in to that
Yeah.
roller coaster of, oh, things are bad, so my life is hard and bad, or things are good, my life is good. And so it's like someone else is holding puppet strings, and
Right.
you're not even in control of your own conscious existence anymore. So I say I say bad and good is a way, something we developed to help us categorize things in
Hmm.
an easy way and not have to think about them anymore.
Yeah.
And also perhaps to associate with whether or not we get rewarded or punished.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
For a while when I was learning how to do that, I would take the bad things and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful."
And it feels so weird, right?
It
Especially if it's
does.
something that you really would be like, okay, you can't put this on the list,
Right.
right? But
Right.
that's where it really becomes challenging. The whole construct of what we have
Right.
created becomes very challenging. And I think those challenges are good for us. I think it's good for us to take our mind to those places,
Hmm.
and to look at things outside of
Right.
what we have been conditioned to believe, have created as a construct for ourselves. Because to me, that opens us up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
opens us up to, if nothing else, understanding one another from a better place, and even understanding ourselves. Like, don't fall for your own constructs either.
Yeah.
Don't fall for your own, like, when I do
Yeah.
this, I'm good. When I do this, I'm bad.
Right.
And putting yourself in those boxes. You're not a bad person because you ate a Cheeto. Stop it.
Right.
Right? Like, no, it's more about getting curious. What was that experience like? How did I feel afterwards? What's that doing to my body?
Yeah.
How is that helping me to fortify and keep myself in a good state of health? When we go in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
it's like our wisdom just expands, so far, and we're able to see so much more that it affects every area of our life. So I would say go for curiosity over
Yeah.
anything else. Ask
I love that.
questions. Stop telling people stuff. Stop telling yourself stuff. Start asking questions.
Yeah. Try not to label everything as good or bad,
Yeah.
because really just learn from it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. There are some
Get
things that there's
curious
some
about
things,
it.
yeah, be curious. There are some things that are going to feel really bad for you. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Look at them, be curious about them. Don't sit with them for very long.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people do is they want to sit in that bad stuff
Yeah. That
for
is
quite
that.
some time.
I bought a ticket, right, to the Saboteur show.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I'm going to use my ticket, right? It's
Yep.
like it's important for us to feel those emotions. I feel
Yeah.
all emotions are valid,
Absolutely.
100%. We don't want to, it's kind of like you're talking about easily, like, oh, you should never be angry, don't let people see you cry, be a
Right.
good girl. It's not about hiding your emotions or pretending that you don't have them or thinking that you shouldn't have them. I don't believe that. I think we should all be able to experience all emotions. I think it's part of being a human.
Right.
But you don't, like you said, you don't have to buy a ticket to the show.
Right.
You don't have to sign up for that to stay
Yep.
in it, right? That is a choice. And that's what we got to train our brain. This work is about training our minds, to be able to shift over to those other parts of the minds. Smart people get really upset about this because they think, oh yeah, I don't want to stay in negativity. I want to be positive. So I'm just going to be positive. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. No, it
The
doesn't.
brain is
It
very
doesn't.
cool, but you cannot teleport in
Right.
it,
Right.
so we it's just like building muscles at the gym. You got to
Yep.
build those neural pathways in your
Yeah.
mind, and it takes work and practice. You can't go to the gym and be like, I'm going to be a rock star bodybuilder and I lift 2 pounds and I say, great, done. Well, where's my rock star bodybuilder body? Why
Yeah.
isn't it here? And yet, smart people do that in their brains all the time. They think, oh, I learned that concept and I'm just going to do it. I'm like, well, why couldn't I be positive? I said I was
Yeah.
going to do this. Well, it takes, you have to train the
You do.
mind just like you train.
You
Neural
do.
pathways have to be built just like muscles have to be built.
Yep.
So it's a path of commitment, right, to ourselves,
Yeah.
to come into thinking and being in this way. I mean, it's why I have a job. It's why you have a job,
Yeah.
right? Because this is something that takes training.
Yeah, it does. It takes training and it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kris, thank you so much for
Mm.
coming on and sharing your wisdom. And I love the saboteur um, CSI thing going on. I absolutely
Thank you.
love that. Um, where can people find you to work with you?
Yeah, sure. You please come visit me on my website. It's just my name, krisdriskill.com. It's spelled a little odd. I'm sure you look in the show
In the
notes,
show
you'll be able
notes.
to
Yep.
say it. Yeah, it's all K's for my name. So you can come visit me there. You can come take a free saboteur assessment. You can come get that, learn about your own saboteurs. And we can talk about that. So you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram at Kris Driskill Official, or over on LinkedIn at my full official name, Christina Driskill. Please come say hi. I would love to connect. Anyone who's listening to Tenya is someone I know I would love to connect with as well, because this Metamorphosis project is such a beautiful,
Oh, thank you so much.
beautiful source of information and guidance. And it's been an absolute joy and pleasure to be a part of it and to share time with you today.
Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, please go to her socials, go to her website, do the assessment. You will not be sorry. Kris, thank you
Yeah,
so much for
my
coming on.
pleasure. Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, Transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.